Swaminomics now with Swaminathan Ankaleshwar, consulting editor with 80 Now. Swami, great to have you back. Let's discuss the word reform. Now, despite slew of reforms, little has been done on the fiscal consolidation front. Do you believe there is a clear roadmap in place for fiscal consolidation? Because that is something which is a big concern and is still a grey area for macro watchers.
That's absolutely true. We don't have a clear roadmap, and partly that is because we don't have a clear roadmap on economic growth. I mean, if you're expecting economic growth of 7% and you end up with 5.5, your budget is going to go haywire because your revenue is not going to be there. We still don't have a very clear idea on what our growth is going to be. I would simply say that 2012 was annus horribilis. Everything went wrong. Your economic growth went wrong, the current account deficit went wrong, the inflation went wrong, a number of things went wrong this particular year. The corruption, the governance issue went wrong. So things were so bad, we kept having a series of negative surprises. I think it is reasonable to assume that next year, 2013 to 2014, we should pick up. GDP growth can pick up to 6.5. The year after, it could once again cross 7. If you start off with that kind of planning, then fiscal consolidation automatically becomes easier because the additional growth itself is going to give you revenue. Over and above that, there will be a focus on selling public sector shares, selling spectrum, selling defense land. I mean, there are a number of different kinds of assets talked about of trying to bridge the deficit. I personally do not regard that as an appropriate way to bridge a deficit. Because, if my deficit is the difference between spending and income, then these one-off items like selling public sector shares shouldn't really be counted there. But anyway, Chidambaram is counting it there, and some rating agencies are going along with that particular thing.
Swami, for FY13 then, do you think we will get close to the revised 5.3% target, or do you reckon the number could be closer to 6%?
I think it could very easily be 5.5 or even more, but Chidambaram has the ability to use smoke and mirrors to hide this particular figure. Suppose, for instance, he owes a certain amount of money to the oil companies or fertilizer corporation or food corporation and does not pay that money. It just held over. The way we have our budgeting accounts, that is treated as a reduction of the deficit. It's not reduction, it's putting off the evil day, but it would be treated as reduction. Again, there's this oil bonds business. So there are various ways of playing around with the figures. But the underlying real deficit, I would say, probably well above 5.5.
Swami, after the success of NMDC FPO, do you think the 30,000 crore disinvestment target is something government will be able to achieve?
This is, the whole aim of what Manmohan and Chidambaram are trying to do is, how do we show that we are going in the right direction? We raise animal spirits, foreign investors move in, the stock market starts going up, stock and markets go up, Indian investors come up, people are willing then to buy public sector shares. There is an attempt to create the new mood. I am not saying that they will succeed for certain, but there is a chance that they will succeed. So if things start going well, I think they might in fact be able to make the successful divestment. This will not be up to us alone. It will also depend on the state of the global economy, on the state of US markets. If the US market starts recovering appreciably, and there are some favorable signs there, we will also be beneficiaries of that. The housing market there definitely looks to have bottomed out. Housing prices are definitely going up. Unemployment is ratcheting down bit by bit. There are positives in the American economy. So if the American economy starts moving up a little, if we get some animal spirits out here, I do think it will be possible to make all the PSU sales. I think there will be a new optimism in the markets.
Right. So, do you think LIC will sort of backstop stake in sale PSUs and ensure that the divestment proceeds actually do succeed?
There as a backstop. And some people criticize that as being, LIC is having to subsidize you. But LIC is something you own yourself. And later on, when the LIC makes the larger profit, when the markets finally go up, a larger dividend from the LIC is of great benefit to the exchequer.
Swami, what about the food security bill? Could that significantly distort public finances?
The food security bill is a given. I mean, it's part of the background spending. According to Mr. Thomas, the food minister, the additional expenditure may be 28,000-30,000 crores a year. If that figure is realistic, it is only 0.3% of GDP. It's the kind of thing that a growing economy should be able to accommodate. That will not be something that will break the back of the government. So if you manage to get back to 6.5% to 7% growth next year, I think you will be able to accommodate that.
Right, and what about fuel subsidy then? Given the fact that we are close to elections, it's not going to be an easy task for the government to hike fuel prices.
I think the big problem, I think, is the oil and the fertilizer. This, in turn, is not within the government's own hands. It boils down to two things. What is going to be the global trend? If you see the rising shale gas and shale oil production in the USA, there are some people who think oil prices will moderate. If you are lucky on that, then perhaps you don't get an additional problem on the oil side. Perhaps we can have some small increases of 50 paise at a time per litre of oil and diesel, petrol and diesel. And that kind of thing, you can perhaps bring that thing under control. But it is not within your hands. If there is an attack by Israel on Iran and the price of oil spikes to 150, then I'm afraid the fat is in the fire. But it does appear that with gas prices moderating in the USA and to some extent in Asia also, that will have a knock-on effect on fertilizer prices. So perhaps fertilizer prices also begin to moderate a little. There has been a very sharp increase in oil and fertilizer, compounded by the fact that the rupee went from 45 to 55, 20% depreciation within a year or so. Out there, if the rupee stabilizes and perhaps appreciates down to 52, 53, that again becomes a positive. That again means that there is less need to subsidize oil and fertilizer. So a number of unknowns out there. If things work out well, it may be manageable. If things don't work out, as I said, fat in the fire.
Swami, delight as always to have you on the show, and thank you for your insights.